You're not going to like it. After a half an hour atop the enclosure wall, weighing all this up, it seems, she loped back into the only home she'd ever known, where food was available, she knew, and where her kind lived. So there was no longer a need for the fences that she had conquered or the walls that she had scaled. She had internalized the mechanisms of control so completely, she had now become her own keeper. So here, I think, is the second key reason why this story resonated so deeply with so many people across the world. In her aspirations and in her plight, we see a clear image of ourselves, stripped down to essential needs. Not only did it have the arc of a good story, but it also reminds us of ways in which we understand what it is to be human today. But there's another reason, I think, why the story resonated so deeply. The end of that story, where she goes back into the enclosure freely, many people found disappointing. This is judging from the blogs that were generated and discussions generated online about this news story. Part of the worldwide fascination, I think, is the disturbance produced by the lack of a Hollywood happy ending. That Carter's bid for freedom was achieved, but not resolved somehow. Well, Rob, so what? Orangutans, after all, aren't really like humans, are they? Well, consider the following. In the last year, Spain's parliament, composed of thoughtful, sober, professional people, have recently voiced support for the rights of great apes to life and freedom. Oh, just wacky Europeans, I'm sure. No, not wacky Europeans. This declaration in the Spanish Parliament, which is now being considered by the European Union, was devised by scientists and philosophers who said, our closest genetic relatives deserve rights hitherto limited only to humans. So how much are they like us? How much are the great apes like us? How close is close? Well, 98%. 98% similarity in terms of DNA. Now that's closer than, say, any two major breeds of dogs. But that genetic similarity of only 2% difference is not the only argument. The ethicist, the Australian ethicist Peter Singer and others have tried to express just what it is that indicates personhood. It turns out that great apes have all these criteria. I'll briefly list them. 1, rationality and self-awareness. Well, tool making and using, previously considered unique to humans, indicates the comprehension of cause and effect and complex problem solving. It also shows self-reflection, the ability to think about an experience without prompting from external stimuli. So, 1 personhood tick for Carta. 2, self-control. Carta's project was certainly purposeful and required persistent application of a planned set of actions. These were not derailed by her other interests of food and sleep. 2 personhood ticks for the orangutan. 3, for personhood, a sense of the future. Well, the notion of escape and there being an out there at all. 3 personhood ticks for the orangutan. 4, a sense of the past. Well, Carta was grieving, so 4 personhood ticks. 5, the capacity to relate to others. The social networking Carta had to engage in to negotiate the collection of sticks. 5 ticks for personhood. 6, concern for others. This was not evident in Carta's case, but it's widely documented in other research on the great apes. There is a story that you may have heard in the California San Diego Zoo of a silverbacked gorilla called Binti, who, when a small toddler fell into the enclosure, a human toddler fell into the enclosure, Binti, with her own baby on her back, went over to the toddler, gently picked it up, rocked and caressed it until the humans could come and human zookeepers could come and collect it. So that's 6, concern for others. 7, for personhood, curiosity. What's behind the wall? That's another tick for Carta. And finally, communication. Not evident in Carta's case, but famous studies that I remember taking when I was an undergraduate of Washoe the chimp and many others have been taught sign language to converse with humans, with each other, and with themselves. They talk to themselves. They make jokes in sign language, puns in sign language, and laugh at them. In fact, considering that list, I know some humans that fail to meet many of these criteria. So again, what's human? What's ape-like? The divide between the two is not so clear anymore. And the differences seem not to be differences in kind, but differences of degree. Research shows all great apes, like human persons, do have these capacities. And Carta, in this case I've been talking about today, has exhibited 6 of 8 of these in this one event, passing in a short space from toolmaker to postmodern object, through the stages of Enlightenment optimism and the modern confrontation with existential freedom, all of human history. And deciding at the end, as we all more or less do, to accept our comfortable cell and count out our days. But how she escaped and what it means is not nearly so affecting as why she did it. Zoo officials were forthright in saying that she was depressed and grieving at the loss of her longtime mate, Pusung. That all great apes grieve. And if they grieve, then something not unlike love must have been happening, for there can be no sense of separation if there was not once a union. But can we know that this is going on in an ape's head? Zoos provide the best environment possible, but it can't be known if a zoo makes apes happy. Indeed, as humans, we really don't understand our own happiness that well, how to make ourselves happy. And grief in humans is also poorly understood. I mean, after all, people do strange things out of grief, too. So again, interpreting Carta's jailbreak and her voluntary reincarceration may just come down to our preferred reading. 1, apes are not like us, therefore this is just the story of a troublesome subhuman who's clever enough to escape, but fundamentally lazy. The meal ticket wins out over the will to freedom, and the dumb animal returns to where the food is. Or 2, apes are like us, and so suffering led to a bid for freedom, that freedom to knowledge, and that knowledge to acceptance of life as it's known, rather than chancing the unknown. The research I've referred to tends to suggest that the second reading may be the truer. It's certainly the richer reading. And even if you dispute the appropriateness of bestowing human rights upon great apes, you'd have to agree that in not doing so, you'd be taking away more from them than you'd be giving them. For Carta's case shows that they are rather like us, even at our most morally timid. Well, what if we were to grant great apes a dignity or personhood equal to our own, given that the differences are a matter of degree rather than a matter of kind? It baffles me that some people shake their heads at embryonic stem cell research, which is, after all, just a clump of cells. But when we're talking about the great apes, like the orangutan, we're talking here about a being with the intelligence of a 5-year-old human. And we typically regard this being as less than human. Matter of degree. Wouldn't we have to radically reevaluate what it is that makes us human or special? Maybe, just maybe, we're not that special after all. That like us, the apes are born and grow up and die in a fix. And like us, they also seem to know it. And if we allow the dignity of human rights to great apes, why stop? Why not grant dignity and freedom to all sentient beings? Not eat them, not cage them, not experiment on them, not wear their skin and fur. That is, really begin to live as though we all share this planet and its resources, and that there is Therefore, after all, more that unites us than divides us. Would this not also grant a greater dignity to ourselves as well?